Okay, gaining employer buy-in. So this is all about, like I said, it's not just about getting an okay. It's about truly getting your employer on board that they are good with this type of working travel. I will share a little story real quick. There was a guy in our group, in our remote year group. His name was Montre. Um, had a verbal commitment from his employer, said everything was cool, paid for the trip, got ready to go. Literally the day before he left, his employer said, "Yeah, we don't think this is such a good idea. We don't want you to go." And so he ended up quitting, and he still did the whole year with us and found another job. But that's what I mean, that it's not enough to get the, yeah, sure, that's okay, that's fine, do whatever you want to do. You've really got to get them to understand what you're embarking on and make sure they're good with it. If you can get them to, agree in writing, that would be great. But at the very least, you want a meeting of the minds with your boss or whatever top dog you need to talk to sign off on this and to say, yeah, we are good with this. We bless this trip. Go ahead and do it. Um, so, okay. So first off, if you have a ton of savings and you don't need to work, then that's one way to play it. We had another person in our group, this girl Kelly, who did that. Traveled the entire year on pure savings. I'm going to make the assumption that you need to work. She was literally the only one in a group of 72 who had the ability to do that. She had saved up enough, and she didn't spend a lot, and lived meagerly, and that was fine. She was able to do that, and took full advantage of every place we went, like sightseeing, reading, did like going everywhere. Like she definitely made the most of her time out there, but she was living off of savings. So I'm going to assume though that you need to work, and so then the question is getting employer buy-in. So first off, if you are a freelancer, obviously this doesn't apply to you. Like if you're a solo independent contractor and you are your own boss, you already have employer buy-in. You are the employer. So I'm making the assumption that you work for someone else and that they are going to need to approve this trip. Okay, so the way we do this, it's in kind of baby steps. So think about it. First gating factor is, are they okay with you telecommuting? And the way to prove this, if they are already okay with that, or you already work partially remotely for your company, then good job. You've passed the first gate there. If you aren't, if you're in the office right now and you don't have the ability to telecommute, that's going to be a big sell to jump from there to, hey, let me go remote. And by the way, I want to travel around the world and work from all these different locations, right? So you're going to have to take a baby step there with gaining the ability to telecommute first. So the way you do that is basically earn the right to telecommute. Present the research that says, hey, telecommuting is great. It produces more productivity in workers. It gives us more resiliency in how we operate as a team. And there's research out there that supports all this, and I'll link to some of it underneath the video. But you've got to get them at least to agree to let you telecommute first, and ideally, then you want to show a track record of telecommuting successfully, right? So assuming that you've already done that and you're already a remote worker for your company, maybe you work part-time out of the office and that's working for you, then that's good. The next leap to get them to make is, can you be effective traveling around the world and working from all these different places, going nomadic, like location independent, whatever you want to call it. Can you make that situation work? And there's no way to wade into that one. That one you kind of, you can't really demonstrate that partially. You kind of have to just do it. But if you can telecommute effectively, maybe take a trip and prove that you can work from the road on a limited basis, and then come back and say, hey, look, I made that work. But the bottom line is, to the extent that you can prove this one step at a time and give them, build up their confidence so they see it, and you put your money where your mouth is and actually make it happen. That's going to help your case. So showing the research that, likewise, I'll post some links to this, but people working effectively from around the world, that can work really well. I'm a case in point, so I will include the links to the various pieces that have been written on me. I did a blog post write-up at the end of Remote Year that has a really good summary. You should definitely read that, but it's got a summary of what my stats were prior to Remote Year, what they were afterwards. I also did a talk at Pressnomics that's worth watching. In this talk, the name of the talk was Making Remote Work Work. And it was basically everything that my company did, the results we had, and it will be good ammo for you to have. But kind of the trajectory that you want to have here is, warm up your employer, get them to like get them open to the idea. So present the research, quantitative stories, data, whatever you can. Present that research. Get them heated up to the idea. Obviously, if they're like all bets are off, no, you're not doing this. That's you're going to have to basically make a decision at some point. Is do I want this job, or am I willing to quit and actually just go do this? Like, what's more important to me? So, but heat them up, get them open to the idea. Then the next stage there, and I'll give you that research. Then the next stage, once you have them warm to the idea, is basically build peace of mind. Get them to, get them more and more comfortable. So they're open to it. Now they're getting comfortable with it. The way you do that is like I said, present the data. The fact that you're going with a group is really huge. So, that's what we're gonna do later today in a few minutes. We're gonna cover group selection, what travel program makes sense. But if you're, and obviously this doesn't apply if you're solo traveling, but if you are intending to go with a group, then it's kind of like, I liken it to traveling like on an aircraft carrier versus like in a dinghy. Like these groups give you a lot more stability. There's a lot more at risk. So, there's safety in numbers in the sense that like they must have resolved the connectivity issues. They must have a good workspace. Safety wise, there's like a support structure there for you. So I think your employer is likely going to be a lot more open to this if you are going with an established group. Now, groups like, again, I always talk about remote year because that's the one I did. They actually have a team of people who will help have that conversation with your employer. They actually have a whole partner team. Obviously they're incented to get employers keen to this, so they're putting resources behind convincing employers, and they've got like sales collateral and all that would be directed towards your employer. So whatever program you talk to, see if they have a team. I would actually make that a criterion by which you evaluate these programs. I know for a fact that Remote Year does have people that will talk to your employer and will help you convince them to let you do it. So you've gotten them warm, you've now substantiated it, given them evidence, talking to them, getting them comfortable with it, and then basically the last thing is just to close it. And the way you close your employer is you basically put a date out there and say, look, I'm doing this. Like this is when the program leaves. I hope that I've proven myself thus far. It's very good to know what you represent to the company in terms of their bottom line. I'm in sales, so it was very easy to, I know what revenue I generated. I was also performing all the marketing roles for Pagely at the time when I left. So it's very good to just know what you represent to the company. Now, if you have your employment agreement, it would be good to read that through. And the reason for doing that is if it comes down to a negotiation and it's adverse, and basically they're saying, yeah, we're not cool with this, and you really want to go, you basically want to, the tone shifts. We want to try to use the carrot as opposed to the stick. We want to win them over and get them to buy in and agree. But if they're not, and you're going to play hardball now and basically make it a walk away situation, you want to review your employment agreement, and you want to do that for a couple of reasons. Basically, you want to find out if there are any gotchas in there that would diminish your negotiating position here. Things like non-competes, although they're very difficult to enforce, but anything in that agreement that would harm your ability to easily walk away. Now, if you happen to live in like California, for instance, super pro-employee state, and regardless of where you live, non-competes are very difficult to enforce. But you do want to be aware of what it says in your employment agreement. If you have a question about it, you can post that in the forums. I'm not a lawyer. I do deal with contracts every day, so I'm somewhat familiar with what to look for. But ultimately, if this is important enough, you should probably, if there's any question that there's some nefarious language in there, you want to get a lawyer and have that lawyer read it and work with you on that. But yeah, okay, but now we're at the point where if we're down that path of the employer's not good with it, we've read the employment agreement, okay, now it's basically, in negotiations, this is what's called BOTNA, or basically walk-away power, but best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So you're now willing to walk away from the job. We had a girl in our group, this girl Stacy, who worked for Insight, and she basically went to her employer and said, guys, I'm doing this. If you want to keep me, you'll let me do this. If not, it's cool, let's part ways. So she was that confident, and sure enough, they let her do it, and she did great, and she was able to do her job in like a few hours a day. And so she was actually in a really great position, and made it work. But anyways, like having that walk away power is knowing what you represent to the bottom line of the company, knowing that your position, there are no like Achilles heels there where they got you, and they can basically, they've got something on you basically. And then just really the resolve to be like, look, I'm going to do this. Either other things that help you with walkaway power, like having a side income. If you happen to have a side business, that's a good thing. I don't know that you're going to be able to start that up and have enough substantial income to be able to make the leap like that from now until whenever you're doing it. But that's something to think about. If your horizon is a year before you're thinking of doing this, what side business could you build up in the meantime that would give you some peace of mind there, where if your employer, if it comes to that and you need to quit, it doesn't matter. You've got enough income to make it work. So side income, savings, obviously, and then having another job lined up is the other thing that gives you walkaway power. I'll link some resources under the video. There's some really great remote work specific resources out there. AngelList is something that I would highly recommend looking into if you're looking for jobs, if it comes to that point. But yeah, having another job lined up, having the ability to walk away like that is going to strengthen your case. So, all right. So that is the employer section here. When you're ready to go to the next video, we're going to talk about your living situation next.